Tears behind palace walls. In a shocking turn of events, Princess Catherine, the beloved future queen, was left in tears after a brutal scolding from Queen Camilla. Witnesses say tensions exploded during a private royal gathering, with icy words and a cruel ultimatum that shattered Catherine's composure. What caused Camilla's fury? Why did no one step in? And is the monarchy on the brink of another royal rupture? The truth behind closed doors is darker than you think. The tense royal gathering at Windsor. On October 21st, 2025, a hush fell over Windsor Castle as senior royals were summoned for an unscheduled private meeting. It was not on the official calendar, and insiders whispered of palace tensions reaching boiling point. Princess Catherine, recovering from her surgery earlier in the year, arrived discreetly around 3:45 p.m. in a black vehicle. Prince William sat beside her, his expression cold and unreadable. Only a handful of press caught the moment, and even they noted the unusually tight security surrounding the event. Camilla, now titled Queen Consort since 2022, arrived shortly after 4 p.m. alone, without Charles by her side. An uncommon breach of traditional protocol. Dressed in an austere navy suit, she looked every bit the power player. Her aides flanked her, speaking in hushed tones. Unlike previous events, there were no polite smiles, no welcoming staff. Camilla made it clear this was not a social affair. It was business, and she was taking charge. Eyewitnesses reported her entrance was sharp, silent, and strategic. Behind closed doors, the mood was frosty. The gathering was small. Only 5 senior royals attended. Notably missing were Princess Anne and Prince Edward, both of whom had excused themselves citing pressing engagements. Insiders believe they deliberately avoided what was expected to be a heated confrontation. Royal staff, some serving since Queen Elizabeth II's reign, said they hadn't seen such cold formality since the 2019 Sussex Summit. The setting, St. George's Hall, echoed with tension. The long oak table was set for a diplomatic discussion, but the energy in the room told a different story. Catherine, physically weakened but mentally alert, tried to present a calm demeanor. William, ever the protective husband, sat close, his presence a quiet shield. Across from them, Camilla positioned herself at the head of the table, a symbolic gesture that did not go unnoticed. As the doors closed behind the last arriving royal, tension turned into confrontation. What began as an uneasy gathering quickly escalated into personal attacks. Camilla's voice, once reserved for charity speeches and garden parties, took on a sharper tone. What followed stunned not just Catherine, but those few inside the room. A verbal lashing laced with accusation, power, and a warning. The once cordial dynamic between 2 royal women fractured under pressure. The Queen Consort was not there to comfort, but to command. Camilla's scathing accusation. At precisely 4:12 p.m., according to a leaked staff log, Camilla began her tirade. She turned sharply to Catherine, questioning her prolonged withdrawal from public duties. "The monarchy is not a waiting game," she allegedly snapped. Her tone was dismissive, her words cold. She suggested Catherine's limited appearances since March 2025 were hurting the firm's image. "You're not a symbol if you're not seen," Camilla said, referring to Catherine's choice to stay out of the spotlight during recovery. Camilla didn't stop there. She referenced numbers, citing how Catherine had only attended 3 official engagements in the last 4 months, compared to Camilla's 11. She allegedly questioned, "If the Queen could work until 96, why can't the Princess of Wales manage 2 events a week?" The statement hit like a dagger. It not only invoked the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, but positioned Catherine as weak and inadequate, a deeply personal attack. Observers described William's face as stone, his hand tightening into a fist under the table. In a voice quiet but shaking, Catherine responded. "I'm under medical advice," she said, referencing her private battle with health issues that had kept her away from public life. Since February 2025, rumors had swirled about her condition, but the palace had only confirmed abdominal surgery without further detail. Catherine had chosen dignity and silence, but Camilla saw it as absence and weakness. Staff described the moment as devastating, especially when Catherine's eyes welled with tears, but she continued speaking. The final blow came when Camilla reportedly muttered, "Duty is not for the faint-hearted." It was not loud, but it was deliberate. It confirmed what everyone in that room already understood. This was not a check-in. It was a challenge. Catherine was being told to step up or be pushed aside. The atmosphere turned icy. It was not just a generational divide or difference in approach. It was a declaration of dominance. Camilla was asserting her control over the future of the monarchy. No royal has ever cried in front of Camilla, until now. Catherine's tears weren't from weakness, but exhaustion. Years of sacrifice, silence, and stoicism cracked under the weight of public scrutiny and private cruelty. As the confrontation ended, emotion spilled over. This wasn't just about appearances, it was about power, legacy, and control. And for the first time in her royal journey, Catherine wasn't just outmatched. She was under siege. The next few minutes would see her unravel in a way that shocked even her husband. Catherine's breaking point. At exactly 4:19 p.m., just 7 minutes after the confrontation began, Princess Catherine's composure finally gave way. Her hands shook, her breathing became shallow, and her eyes, usually the picture of grace, filled with tears. Witnesses say she whispered, "I've given everything to this family," her voice breaking. The room fell silent. William reached for her hand, clearly torn between outrage and restraint. The sight of the future queen in such visible pain was deeply unsettling, especially inside Windsor's walls. Catherine's words carried weight. Since joining the royal family in 2011, she had taken on over 70 patronages, performed thousands of engagements, and never once stepped into scandal. Even through pregnancies, grief, and tabloid slander, she remained the palace's greatest asset. Yet, in this moment, her years of quiet service were dismissed as insufficient. "I am not a machine," she reportedly said. "I am a mother. I am healing." It was a rare display of humanity from someone who had spent 14 years walking on eggshells. William's reaction spoke volumes. His protective instincts kicked in. A former royal guard said he looked like he was about to speak, but Catherine subtly signaled him to stop. She didn't want more conflict. That alone told staff everything they needed to know. Catherine still thought of the institution, even in the face of betrayal. The pain wasn't just from Camilla's words. It was from years of holding back, of putting the crown before her own well-being. Within 10 minutes, aides were called. Catherine was escorted out of the meeting room through a private corridor. Witnesses said she clutched a small cloth to her face and refused to speak. She and William left the castle at 4:38 p.m., entering their vehicle in silence. The image of Catherine in tears quickly reached a handful of palace staff, many of whom were visibly shaken. For the first time in decades, the future queen had been broken in broad daylight by another woman wearing the crown. As the royal car pulled away from Windsor's iron gates, The battle lines were drawn. Camilla remained behind, confident and composed, while Catherine vanished from view. But inside the car, a silent storm raged. William, once just a boy witnessing his mother's pain, now watched his wife suffer in the same way. The crown that should have united them had become a weapon. And as the gates shut behind them, the question lingered: how much more could Catherine endure before something finally shattered? Camilla's power play. In the weeks leading up to the October 21st meeting, Camilla had already begun maneuvering behind the scenes. Since becoming queen consort in 2022, she had steadily expanded her influence, attending over 95 royal events in the last year alone. Palace insiders began noticing a pattern. Camilla was slowly absorbing patronages previously associated with Princess Catherine. In early September 2025, it was quietly announced that Camilla would be taking over Catherine's Children's Mental Health Initiative, a move that raised eyebrows across the country. This was not just about appearances. Camilla had begun restructuring the royal ecosystem. She was pushing Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, into more public roles, offering her larger speaking platforms and joint engagements. A document leaked from Clarence House revealed plans to position Sophie as the stabilizing female force of the monarchy, language once used for Catherine. Staff believe Camilla is grooming Sophie to serve as her counterweight to Catherine's immense popularity. One insider even said, "She's stacking the deck in her favor." Camilla's motivation appears rooted in legacy. After decades of scandal and public disdain, most notably for her role in Princess Diana's heartbreak, Camilla is determined to reshape history. Sources close to her say she believes Catherine has coasted on goodwill, while Camilla has done the hard work. She's not content being queen by title. She wants to be queen in influence. If the monarchy fails now, it will be remembered as her failure too, one aide explained. That pressure has only made her more aggressive in consolidating power. By mid-October, Camilla's fingerprints were everywhere. She took over Catherine's Royal Foundation Symposium, appeared in 5 major magazine spreads within 2 months, and even requested a redesign of the official royal family website, placing her biography above Catherine's. These weren't random choices. They were deliberate, tactical moves to reposition herself as the royal family's matriarchal core. With Charles showing signs of fatigue after his April 2025 health scare, Camilla saw an opening, and she took it. As Camilla's grip on royal operations tightened, William could no longer ignore the shifting power dynamics. Watching Catherine be pushed aside while his stepmother rose to prominence triggered deep emotional unrest. He had stood by as a child, watching his mother be eclipsed. Now he was seeing the same shadow fall over his wife. The quiet fury that had simmered in Windsor boiled to the surface. And for Prince William, protector of his family and heir to the throne, the line had finally been crossed. William's silent fury. In the immediate aftermath of the Windsor confrontation, Prince William was uncharacteristically quiet. He skipped a scheduled public appearance in Oxford on October 22nd, citing family matters. But royal insiders tell a different story. William was livid. One aide reported hearing him shout, "She has gone too far this time," in the private quarters of Adelaide Cottage, their family home. For the usually composed prince, it was a rare eruption, and one that signaled his patience had run dry. William's loyalty to Catherine has never wavered. Since their 2011 wedding, he has fiercely defended her behind palace walls. But this confrontation brought back old wounds. He remembered being 15 years old when Diana cried in front of him, after another phone call with Charles. Now, in 2025, he watched his wife, his queen-in-waiting, be humiliated by the same woman. Sources close to him say it was a psychological trigger, rekindling decades of buried emotion. "He won't let history repeat itself," a close friend shared. Rather than confront Camilla immediately, William reportedly sought counsel from Princess Anne, known for her blunt wisdom and loyalty to the monarchy. Anne, who had skipped the meeting, allegedly told him, "You must protect the institution, but never at the expense of your family." That advice resonated. William began planning a series of private meetings with the king, not to air grievances, but to demand lines be drawn. "He knows Camilla won't stop," said one palace source, "but the king must." William also began making subtle moves of his own. On October 24th, he met privately with several of Catherine's patronage directors, assuring them she was still fully engaged and committed. He also made an unscheduled visit to St. Mary's Hospital, one of Catherine's key charity partners. The message was clear: Catherine is not stepping back. William was not going to let Camilla erase his wife's legacy or future. The war was still behind closed doors, but the counteroffensive had begun. As William quietly plotted his next steps, the palace scrambled to control the damage. Leaks were spreading. Whispers of Catherine's tears and Camilla's cold remarks were reaching royal watchers across the globe. The firm knew that one viral story could shatter the carefully managed image they had spent years restoring. The next move wasn't just about power. It was about perception. And as the palace PR team kicked into overdrive, they knew they had to do one thing fast: make the story disappear. The palace tries to bury the story. On October 25th, 2025, the palace communications team issued a vague but firm statement. Her Royal Highness Princess Catherine continues to recover and remains in good health. Reports of discord within the family are without merit. But it was too late. By then, multiple royal correspondents had confirmed that a heated exchange took place in Windsor. The public wasn't buying the denial. The firm had gone into crisis mode, attempting to plug leaks and silence whispers, but the damage was done. Staff across Windsor Castle, Clarence House, and Kensington Palace were issued strict gag orders. Leaked memos revealed that any employee found speaking to the press would face immediate termination and possible legal action. The palace brought in external PR consultants to shift focus, scheduling 6 royal events in 5 days to flood the media. They even pushed Charles into a last-minute charity appearance in Leeds on October 26th, hoping to divert headlines. But the internet had already exploded. Hashtags like #WeStandWithKate and #Camilla out-trended across X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Popular influencers and royal commentators dissected the confrontation minute by minute. Fan pages posted side-by-side videos of Diana crying in 1995 and Catherine's recent car exit in 2025, drawing chilling parallels. Despite the palace's efforts, YouTube reaction videos had already pulled in over 12 million views. The palace couldn't bury what the public had already unearthed. In desperation, palace insiders allegedly contacted editors at The Daily Mail, The Times, and Hello Magazine, asking them to temper the tone of their coverage. Some agreed, but others refused, citing editorial integrity. Even royal-friendly journalists began to push back. "The public has a right to know," wrote one anonymous columnist. By October 28th, it was clear. The palace's plan had backfired. Silence was no longer a shield. The firm had lost control of the narrative, and Catherine had won the public's heart. As the media storm raged and the palace scrambled, something unexpected happened. The public, across generations, nations, and ideologies, rallied behind Catherine. Her vulnerability became her strength, and Camilla's coldness ignited fury. But this wasn't just about two women. It was about the soul of the monarchy. And as comparisons to Diana intensified, the crown found itself caught in a loop of history, repeating the very mistakes that once nearly brought it down. What came next would decide the monarchy's future. Public support swells for Catherine. By October 29, 2025, just 8 days after the confrontation at Windsor, Princess Catherine had become a symbol of resilience. The hashtag #WeStandWithKate reached over 90 million views on TikTok and trended for 5 consecutive days on X, formerly Twitter. Public forums overflowed with emotional posts recalling Catherine's loyalty since marrying William in April 2011. Fans highlighted her work with Early Years, Heads Together, and her quiet grace throughout Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in 2022, contrasting sharply with Camilla's cold posture. Commentators on talk shows and morning news in both the UK and US rallied behind Catherine. Even popular royal critics like Piers Morgan and Meghan McCain defended her right to heal, calling Camilla's behavior cold-hearted and tone-deaf. Mental health advocates quickly weighed in, with Mind UK and Calm releasing statements supporting Catherine's decision to prioritize her recovery. "Mental health is not weakness," read one viral post that gained 450,000 likes. For the first time in a long while, the public had united behind a royal, unapologetically. Online, Catherine's supporters launched tribute accounts, filled with montages of her engagements over the last 12 years. Clips of her kneeling to speak to children, comforting grieving families, and working in hospitals during COVID-19 in 2020 resurfaced. One fan video titled "The Real Queen in Waiting" garnered 5.6 million views in 48 hours. Camilla, in stark contrast, faced a wave of negativity. Her name mentioned over 110,000 times in a single weekend, most of it critical. Public opinion polling confirmed the divide. A YouGov survey released November 1, 2025, revealed that 83% of Britons viewed Catherine favorably, while Camilla's ratings dropped to 38%, her lowest since 2018. Even older generations, once skeptical of Catherine, began defending her with renewed admiration. "She's the Princess Diana we were promised," wrote one viral comment. The people were speaking, and the message was clear. Catherine was their queen, in everything but title. As Catherine's popularity soared, the palace faced an uncomfortable truth. Public loyalty no longer followed the crown, but the character beneath it. With Camilla's image bruised, and Catherine hailed as the emotional successor to Diana, old wounds reopened. The comparisons were not just cosmetic. They cut to the core of the monarchy's identity. And as echoes of Diana's tragedy reverberated across headlines and hearts, even the firmest royal allies began asking, "Are we witnessing history repeating itself all over again?" Echoes of Diana's pain. It was impossible to ignore the chilling similarities. In 1995, Princess Diana sat down for her infamous interview with Martin Bashir, her eyes filled with hurt and resolve. Now, in 2025, her son's wife sat in a car, head bowed, tears streaking her face. The imagery was too familiar. Royal historians immediately drew the line between Catherine's quiet breakdown and Diana's public unraveling. Both women married into the House of Windsor, both adored by the people, both wounded by the same force, Camilla Parker Bowles. Camilla's involvement in Charles and Diana's marriage scandal during the 1980s and early 1990s had made her a national villain. Despite a carefully managed PR campaign following her marriage to Charles in 2005, many never forgave her. Now, with Catherine in the spotlight for the wrong reasons, the narrative was shifting back. Camilla has become the villain once again, wrote royal biographer Angela Levin, noting that this time her perceived cruelty had a new victim. William, too, was visibly affected. On November 3rd, during an engagement in Nottingham, he was asked by a well-wisher, "How's Catherine?" He paused, looked down, and simply replied, "She's strong." Those two words sent ripples across social media. Just like his mother, some noted, the same pain, the same protection. It was not lost on the public that William, who had witnessed his mother's destruction, was now watching the same treatment unfold with his wife. And it showed in every line of his face. The monarchy has always relied on silence to survive. But the ghosts of the past were no longer staying buried. As more and more people rewatched old footage of Diana crying in 1992, it clashed violently with clips of Camilla smiling beside Charles at recent events. The contrast felt cruel. The pain felt recycled. And Catherine, unknowingly, had become the newest symbol of that generational trauma. A cycle of betrayal that the crown seemed unable or unwilling to break. Haunted by memory and driven by emotion, the people demanded accountability. But while Catherine's suffering struck a chord, the real question loomed overhead. Where was King Charles in all this? His silence grew louder with every passing day. No statement, no gesture of support. As Britain rallied behind its princess, the monarch seemed absent, indifferent. And that absence was no longer strategic. It was damning. The crown stood at a moral crossroads, and all eyes now turned toward the man who once promised to protect his family. Charles's silence adds to the fire. As the public conversation exploded across platforms, one voice remained conspicuously absent: King Charles III. By November 5th, 2025, the monarch had still not issued a single word about the confrontation at Windsor or the public backlash aimed at Camilla. For a king who ascended the throne in September 2022, after a lifetime of waiting, this was a critical moment to lead. Instead, Charles chose silence, and that silence became its own kind of statement, one of passivity, or perhaps quiet approval. Royal insiders offered conflicting accounts. One source close to Clarence House claimed Charles supported Camilla's desire for more visibility. He believes the monarchy must evolve and toughen up, the source said, noting his increasing fatigue from public duties since his April 2025 health scare. Another source insisted Charles was torn, conflicted between his wife and his heir. He loves Catherine, but he's spent decades trying to restore Camilla's public image, they explained. He doesn't know how to balance both anymore. Behind palace walls, staff described a growing tension. William reportedly requested a private audience with his father on November 7th, which was denied due to schedule conflicts. The decision infuriated William, who has long felt that his father prioritizes Camilla's ambitions over his family's emotional well-being. If he could ignore Diana's tears, why would he care about Catherine's? One senior aide was quoted as saying, "The scars of the past were no longer hidden. They were bleeding into the present." The public noticed. Editorials in The Guardian and The Telegraph openly criticized Charles's handling of the crisis. "The king cannot afford to be absent," read one headline. On social media, phrases like #Charles the Coward began to circulate. His favorability rating dropped to 52%, while William's rose to 88%. By failing to address the fracture between Catherine and Camilla, Charles had positioned himself not as a unifier, but as a monarch out of touch. And for a king only 3 years into his reign, that was a dangerous place to be. While Charles remained cloaked in silence and Camilla in defiance, a storm was brewing. Catherine had endured. William had stood firm. But now, the royal family faced a choice that would define its future. Would it allow history to repeat itself once more, sacrificing the people's princess for internal power games? Or would someone finally speak, act, and restore the dignity that Diana once fought to preserve? With trust crumbling and tensions rising, the next chapter would either be healing or complete rupture. A royal rift or royal reckoning? By mid-November 2025, the House of Windsor stood on shaky ground. Behind the palace gates, preparations were underway for the Commonwealth Christmas broadcast, but no one could ignore the headlines. The tension between Camilla and Catherine had gone global. Media outlets from Canada, Australia, and South Africa ran specials comparing Catherine's plight to Diana's. Royal advisors were divided, some urging unity, others pushing for a bold reset. What came next could either mend or break the monarchy once and for all. Prince William, insiders say, is considering stepping back from certain joint engagements with Camilla, a royal first. He has requested a review of internal roles and public optics, signaling a desire to draw a clear line between his future and hers. Catherine, still recovering, is said to be refocused on her mission, especially her early childhood foundation, which announced a major initiative for January 2026. The message is clear. Catherine will not be erased. Meanwhile, the public continues to demand answers. Petitions calling for a full reassessment of Camilla's role have crossed 350,000 signatures. Discussions of constitutional reform, once unthinkable, are now creeping into mainstream discourse. Even Labour MPs have begun asking questions in Parliament about royal transparency. The Crown is under scrutiny not just for its silence, but for its structure, how it protects, who it uplifts, and who it sacrifices. A reckoning may no longer be avoidable. As the new year approaches, Britain waits. Will the monarchy, as it has for centuries, adapt to survive? Or will it cling to outdated hierarchies that alienate its future? One thing is certain: the people have chosen their queen, not by bloodline, but by heart. And that queen is not Camilla. It is Catherine. As the palace hides behind silence, the public has spoken. Catherine is their queen in every way that matters. But with Camilla's shadow looming and Charles refusing to act, one question remains: can the monarchy survive another royal war? History may be repeating itself, but this time the world is watching in real time. If you believe in grace, strength, and truth, stand with Catherine. The crown may be worn, but the people decide who earns it.